There has been significant looting reported inside Bashar al-Assad's presidential palace following the collapse of his regime earlier this month. On December 8, 2024, opposition forces and civilians entered the palace in Damascus after Assad fled the country. Videos and photos show people taking furniture, luxury goods, cash, and other valuables. Some items looted included Louis Vuitton trunks and chandeliers. This occurred amidst widespread celebrations and chaotic scenes in Damascus as rebel forces took control of the capital. Following the fall of Bashar al-Assad's regime on December 8, 2024, widespread looting broke out in Damascus, including at the presidential palace and Assad's private residence. Civilians and opposition forces ransacked these locations, taking cash, luxury goods, and valuables like gold-plated fixtures, chandeliers, and designer trunks. These events symbolize the collapse of the Assad family's control after decades of rule. The looting coincided with broader chaos, as the Syrian central bank and other key sites were also targeted. From my perspective, the looting of Bashar al-Assad's presidential palace reflects a profound moment of both symbolic and practical significance in Syria's turbulent history. On one hand, it illustrates the collapse of an authoritarian regime that held power for over 5 decades, serving as a cathartic expression of public anger and frustration. The destruction of personal symbols of Assad's rule, like portraits and luxury furnishings, shows the deep-seated resentment many Syrians harbored toward the regime, which they associate with oppression and suffering. On the other hand, the chaos surrounding the event highlights the uncertainty and risks of transitional periods in conflict zones. Looting and mob actions often emerge when institutional control collapses, raising concerns about maintaining order and rebuilding governance. While the removal of a long-standing autocrat is a cause for celebration among many Syrians, it also opens the door to questions about what comes next. Whether the country will transition to a stable and inclusive government or face further instability due to factional rivalries and external influences. Beyond its symbolic importance, the looting of Bashar al-Assad's presidential palace highlights broader dynamics about the state of Syria and its path forward. Here are a few additional perspectives to consider. Loss of regime, legitimacy. The storming of such a central seat of power underscores the regime's loss of authority and popular legitimacy. The looting serves as a public repudiation of Assad's leadership and a rejection of the system he represented. The power vacuum. In the wake of Assad's departure, the chaos demonstrates the immediate consequences of a power vacuum. Without a functioning government to enforce order, public unrest has transformed into uncontrolled destruction, complicating efforts for a peaceful transition. Challenges of reconciliation. While many Syrians may view the palace's looting as justified, it could also deepen divisions. Those loyal to Assad or dependent on his regime might see such actions as retributive, further polarizing an already fragmented society. The role of international actors. The event draws attention to the role that foreign powers will play in shaping Syria's post-Assad future. The looting not only dismantles the physical symbols of the regime, but also weakens its infrastructure, potentially opening the door for external influence and intervention. Historic parallels. Events like this have parallels in other fallen regimes, where anger against long-standing autocrats often results in similar public acts. However, history also warns that such moments can either pave the way for rebuilding or plunge nations into further turmoil. Ultimately, while the looting symbolizes the end of an era, it also serves as a stark reminder of the immense task ahead in rebuilding a fractured country. What Syrian leaders and their allies respond to this critical moment will shape the nation's trajectory for years to come. In essence, this moment is a double-edged sword, a hopeful step toward change, but one fraught with challenges that could shape Syria's future for years to come. Bashar al-Assad's presidential palace in Damascus became a site of chaos and looting following the collapse of his regime. Crowds stormed the palace, smashing portraits and seizing furniture and valuables. This event symbolized the dramatic fall of the Assad government, which had controlled Syria for over 5 decades. Citizens also raided other high-profile locations, including the Syrian central bank and Assad's private residence. The looting occurred as rebel forces entered Damascus, triggering widespread celebrations among some and panic among others attempting to flee the country. Amidst the power vacuum, opposition leaders declared the end of Assad's rule and began negotiating a peaceful transition of power.